Following Centaurus Vega update, the devs decided to hit us with another banger a week later with the much anticipated Dead Ahead Libra update, also known as Back to Jupiter. This update is quite possibly the biggest update this game has ever had, with the introduction of 3 new factions, 4 new game modes, 10 new maps, and that's just scratching the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my review on Dead Ahead Back to Jupiter. Let's start with the main attraction, the new game modes. Atoll and Stronghold are back, reworked from the ground up with a completely new style. So let's begin with Atoll. Atoll is probably the mode that has gone through the most changes, as this is now its 5th iteration, and I've got to be completely honest, this is my favorite thus far. Across all its versions, Atoll has mostly been a King of the Hill style game mode. Orion and Antares spawn on opposite sides of the map and use a mix of ground, naval, and air forces to capture points over time. This iteration is basically that. At the start of the match, both teams spawn on landing craft docks. These act as deployment points for additional landing craft, including ones carrying vehicles and armored units, basically tanks. Players then steer them toward the island and can drop off anywhere. Once on the island, teams can begin capturing points. Holding a point allows your team to spawn there. Each captured point generates 1 point per second, and the first team to reach 2,000 points wins. This version features 4 capture points, and what makes it really interesting is that each one plays very differently. Point A is an airbase. The team that controls it can spawn a heavy fighter or a medium bomber, giving a huge advantage in both air and ground control. Point B features a crashed bomber. It can't fly, but it has 2 turrets that can be used to fight off enemy aircraft, making it a natural counter to Point A. Point C is in the trenches. It's probably the hardest point to take, as it's very easy to defend. However, it's often overlooked due to its distance from the main action, meaning it can sometimes be captured uncontested. Finally, Point D is the coastal battery. It's filled with hills and trees, providing solid cover for both attackers and defenders. Here, it's really anyone's game. Most of the time, control of these points depend almost entirely on where teams choose to land. In a typical match, Antares tends to take point B and C, while Orion takes A and D. This can give Orion an early game advantage due to faster access to aircraft. However, anti-aircraft guns are scattered across the map, especially around B and C, so it's not an easy win. On the ground, players can choose from several classes. Riflemen have a semi-automatic rifle, grenades, and can drive vehicles. Medics carry semi-automatic rifles and can heal teammates with their medkit. Support uses a machine gun, while anti-tank units have rocket launchers, pistols, and anti-tank mines. These classes complement each other well, and with good coordination can quickly take objectives. Like usual, there's also a battleship anchored offshore. Players can't move it, but they can use its guns to bombard the island, destroy landing craft, or weaken enemy positions. Once a team falls behind by 200 points, that team will gain access to their aircraft carrier. This unlocks fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and attack aircraft. It gives the losing team a chance to recover, but capturing points should still be the priority. Now, I want to be clear, this mode is fun, but sometimes the larger scale can work against the teamwork aspect of Dead Ahead. With roughly 35 players per team, that's roughly 9 players per point, and many of them are mostly doing completely different things, either flying aircraft, manning artillery, or just respawning, as dying is pretty normal, so it can quickly turn into pure chaos. There's still teamwork, but it feels more like Centaura teamwork than traditional Dead Ahead. That's not a bad thing, it's just a different kind of fun. At the end of the day, this is easily the most unique game mode out of all 9, and even now, I still get excited every time the words Jupiter Atoll show up on my screen, because I know that I'm in for a chaotic, but incredibly fun match. Next up is Stronghold, an absolute banger. Previously, Stronghold was an attack and defend mode. One side had to defend 7 bastion towers using a few coastal ships, while the other relied on a mix of ships and mostly aircraft to destroy those towers. This new version keeps that core idea, but massively increases the scale. Now, Orion has 2 sets of bastion towers, with 7 towers in each set, along with a heavy cruiser to help defend. On the other side, Antares brings a carrier-focused fleet built around aircraft. Despite what seems like a huge fleet, there are technically only 4 ships you can spawn in. 2 light carriers, 1 level carrier, and 1 heavy cruiser. However, the 3 carriers cannot move or be destroyed. Instead, they act as permanent air bases with unlimited aircraft spawns. The light carriers provide attack aircraft, dive bombers, and fighters, while the level carrier deploys light bombers. Because of this, around 90% of Antares' offensive power comes from aircraft. The heavy cruiser mainly supports by dealing extra damage to bastion towers or engaging Orion's defending cruiser. The rest of the ships you can spawn in are NPC controlled, and they mainly provide long-range artillery support toward the bastion towers. They'll occasionally land a few hits, dealing some damage, but it's not nearly enough to win on their own. Antares players still need to actively attack to bring the tower down. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the match, Orion receives air support. Players can spawn in as fighters mid-air to defend the bastion towers from incoming aircraft. These fighters are still vulnerable to enemy fighters and defensive turrets on bombers. As for win conditions, Orion wins by keeping at least one bastion tower alive for 10 minutes. I absolutely adore this version of Stronghold. Dead Ahead already supports massive server sizes, so scaling this mode up was a no-brainer. The defending team is constantly scrambling to manage different aspects of their defense. Do they need more people on the towers, the cruiser, or the planes? And the same goes for the attacking team. If they only focus on sending aircraft in without the help of the cruiser, the endless barrage of anti-aircraft alone won't even allow the attackers to make a dent. It is this kind of teamwork that keeps players coming back to the game again and again. I also find it hilarious that this mode is more aircraft-centric than Phoenix is. That's a bummer. That about wraps up the revamped game modes. But what about the brand new ones? Enter Gauntlet and Standoff. Standoff is a pretty simple game mode compared to the others. Both teams have 2 battle cruisers and 2 battleships, and the objective is straightforward: sink all enemy ships. There's no real gimmick here, but that honestly makes it even better. Battleship standoffs and skirmish have always been fun, with chaos on deck even without much maneuvering. Now that we have an entire mode built around that concept, it just feels much more satisfying. Watching ships trade volleys back and forth as each side tries to outlast the other is incredibly satisfying. It's simple, but it works. Gauntlet, on the other hand, is a completely different story. It's a non-linear mode that evolves as the match goes on. At the start, one team is equipped with 2 heavy cruisers, 2 destroyers, and 2 destroyer escorts with rocket launchers. That's a lot of firepower. I wonder what they're up against. Oh. That's 27 torpedo boats. Small, fast, and each armed with a single torpedo launcher. This mode is basically a pure battle of quality versus quantity. The match is divided into 3 stages. 5 minutes into the match, the torpedo boat side receives 2 additional destroyers. Not a huge boost, but definitely helpful. 10 minutes into the match, both sides gain 1 heavy cruiser. If the torpedo boat is struggling, this is their last chance to turn things around. If they're already ahead, it's usually enough to close out the game. As for win conditions, the fleet with the larger ships can either outlast the timer, which is around 10 minutes after the final reinforcements, or completely wipe out the enemy. That includes all 27 torpedo boats. Meanwhile, the torpedo boat side just needs to sink the opposing fleet at any point. I personally find this mode to be my absolute favorite when playing the team with the heavy firepower ships, mainly because the drill of maneuvering and dodging torpedoes while taking down each torpedo boat one at a time takes really good team coordination, and that is what I love about Dead Ahead. The same can be said for the other team. If they're scattered, the torpedo boats get picked off one by one, but together, they can create pure chaos, surrounding enemy ships with torpedoes from all directions. Definitely one of my favorite modes in the game. So that about wraps up all the game modes, and honestly, they're easily the highlight of this update. There's not a single one that I don't enjoy playing, and even this video doesn't do justice on how cleverly these modes are crafted. So please, try them out yourself. Now, while the game modes are the main attraction of this update, they're just the beginning. We also get 3 new factions, and I hope I'm pronouncing these right: Libra, Solstice, and Dragon Compact. To understand these properly, we need to look at how things worked before. Previously, there were 4 main factions: Orion, Antares, Hydras, and Ursa. Orion was allied with Hydras, while Antares was allied with Ursa. This update builds on that system. Libra joins Orion and Hydras, forming a larger alliance known as the Dragon Compact. On the other side, the alliance between Antares and Ursa is called Solstice. What this means in practice is that when you join a match and see a Dragon Compact or Solstice team, you're basically getting a joint fleet from the factions within that alliance. This opens up a lot more variety in fleet compositions and makes each match feel more dynamic. As usual, with the addition of a new nation like Libra, there's also plenty of new ships, including seaplane tenders, which are basically Libra's version of an aircraft carrier. Alongside the new game modes and factions, we also get new maps. Dead Ahead is already a visually stunning game, so it's no surprise that these maps look incredible as well. In my opinion, they make the world of Dead Ahead feel much more alive. Maps like Port Delphinus with a massive Antares fleet attacking Orion really sell the scale of the conflict and make battles feel far larger than they have any right to be. And finally, let's quickly go over some of the smaller additions that came with this update. Credits are back. You earn them through winning, losing, and getting kills, and they can be used to purchase weapons and cosmetics. Also, yeah, there's now character customization. You can press M to open a menu that lets you change your appearance across different factions. Your hair, face, skin color are all customizable. It's a really nice addition, especially with the new cosmetics included. There are also a lot more smaller quality of life changes. Preset messages make it much easier to communicate with your team, and ship tags in chat let everyone know what you're on. Movement also feels smoother now, with sprinting by pressing shift. There's a new starting menu, and more importantly, a private server control panel. This might not mean much for casual players, but as a YouTuber, private servers are how I get most of my footage, so this is actually a huge addition. Also, you can dance now, so there's that. There are also some interesting bits of lore sprinkled in. For example, in the Standoff game mode, if Solstice wins without taking any losses, the Antarians and Ursans actually turn on each other, leading to a final battle between the two. It's small details like this that really add to the overall experience. Overall, this update is massive. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't just release it as Dead Ahead 3.0 because this genuinely feels like the biggest update we've had in years. This update shows that the simple idea of two teams battling it out at sea still works, and is something people are willing to play, as just a few days after release, the game peaked at around 660 concurrent players, which is nearly 10 times its usual. I also want to correct something from my last video. This update is probably not the last, and that's great. I would love nothing more than to see this game reach a wider audience, as it, in my opinion, is one of the best naval games on Roblox. Of course, the update isn't perfect. There are some bugs here and there, but that's expected with something this big. Give it some time, and things will likely smooth out. But even with that, this is easily one of the best updates Dead Ahead has ever had. Anyways, that's all from me for now. If you'd like to see more content made by me, feel free to click subscribe and press the like button. See ya.